The name Joaquin El Chapo Guzman has been synonymous with crime for decades. He was known as the notorious drug lord, a man whose name rhymes with his ruthless dominance in the illegal drug trade. However, after years of evading the law, El Chapo was finally captured and sentenced to America's toughest and most secure prison, ADX Florence. But what is life like inside the walls of this impenetrable fortress?
Tonight, the I-Team has a letter from El Chapo in which he implies that U.S. prison officials are bullying him because he has escaped before.
Join us in today's video as we take a closer look at why El Chapo's supermax prison is worse than death. The rise, fall, and escape saga of the notorious drug lord. During the 90s, El Chapo, following in the footsteps of the infamous Pablo Escobar, gained a reputation as one of the most powerful drug lords in history. Each year, he was earning billions of dollars through his narcotics empire in Mexico. Initially a co-founder of the renowned Guadalajara cartel, El Chapo eventually branched out to establish his own notorious organization, the Sinaloa cartel. However, his reign of power came under threat when the death of a Catholic cardinal was linked to his cartel, which led to his first arrest by the Mexican army on June 9, 1993. But it was El Chapo's subsequent actions that truly set his story apart. Despite being sentenced to 20 years in a federal maximum security prison in Mexico on various charges, his wealth and influence proved to be formidable obstacles for those seeking to bring him to justice. In 2001, El Chapo executed a bold and daring escape from prison, orchestrated with the help of a corrupted prison guard named Francisco Javier El Chito Camberos Rivera. El Chapo reportedly paid El Chito a staggering sum of $2.5 million to facilitate his breakout. The plan involved using a laundry cart to hide and transport El Chapo out of the heavily fortified walls of the maximum security prison. Can you imagine the audacity of such a plan, where a laundry cart became the vessel of a notorious drug lord's escape without anyone suspecting a thing? But here's the twist in the tale. El Chapo's influence extended much further than a simple bribe to a single guard. Reports suggested that he had virtually paid every prison official on his payroll, right up to the director of the entire facility. This revelation painted a compelling picture of El Chapo's control over the prison's operations and hinted at the extent of his reach and power. Following his dramatic escape, El Chapo's focus shifted towards the United States, where he attracted the attention of law enforcement agencies. In San Diego, he faced a couple of charges that included money laundering and orchestrating the large-scale importation of cocaine into California. Likewise, his Sinaloa cartel attorney, Humberto Loya Castro, also faced allegations of corrupt activities that involved bribing Mexican officials to secure the release of arrested cartel members. Despite the mounting legal challenges and efforts to bring him to justice, El Chapo was so powerful that he couldn't be caught easily. In 2014, a formidable alliance comprising the Mexican Navy, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the United States Marshal Service teamed up with one goal in mind, and that was the capture of El Chapo. Through a coordinated display of intelligence and coordination, the Joint Task Force successfully tracked and apprehended El Chapo on February 22, 2014. He was then transferred to the Federal Social Readaptation Center, No. 1, a maximum security prison in Almoloya de Juarez, State of Mexico, via a federal police Black Hawk helicopter. The facility, along with its surrounding areas, experienced heightened surveillance as a substantial contingent of law enforcement personnel fortified their presence to prevent any potential escape by El Chapo. However, El Chapo once again defied all expectations. On July 11, 2015, he orchestrated one of the most audacious prison escapes in history. With the help of his wife, he organized a network of individuals outside the prison to undertake the ambitious task of constructing a 1.5-kilometer-long tunnel from a nearby construction site to the very confines of his prison cell's shower area. This tunnel featured artificial lighting, air ducts, and high-quality construction materials. By the time guards realized what was happening, the drug lord was already on a motorcycle riding far away from there. Unfortunately for El Chapo, his freedom didn't last very long. American and Mexican forces united once again on Operation Black Swan, and on January 8, 2016, El Chapo found himself back in their clutches. However, this time, the repercussions would be far more severe than he could have ever anticipated. On January 19, 2017, El Chapo faced his worst nightmare, the crushing blow that he had long feared. The news broke that he would be extradited to the United States, and that marked a definitive turning point in his life. On July 17, 2019, he was found guilty on various charges which included drug trafficking, money laundering, and weapons-related offenses. The sentence handed down was harsh and unforgiving: life in prison plus an additional 30 years with no possibility of parole. Initially, his whereabouts was undisclosed, even hidden from his own legal team. It was 2 days later after his sentence that it was revealed that El Chapo would be moved to the ADX Florence supermax prison. At that moment, most American and Mexican authorities understood that it would take the utmost security measures to keep the infamous drug lord securely detained. Hence, they recognized that only the impenetrable walls of ADX Florence could stop El Chapo's cunning power and far-reaching influence. Inside ADX Florence, America's toughest supermax prison. Situated in the desolate and isolated region of Florence, Colorado, the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, widely known as ADX Florence, reigns as the epitome of maximum security prisons. Known as the Alcatraz of the 21st century or the Alcatraz of the Rockies, this fortress-like institution has earned its fearsome reputation. Former Warden Robert Hood aptly described it as a clean version of hell, capturing the essence of the institution's unyielding nature. With its inception in 1994, ADX Florence emerged in a sparsely populated and unincorporated area located about 100 miles south of Denver and 40 miles south of Colorado Springs. It was conceived as Colorado's response to the Marion Federal Penitentiary model, meaning that the state wanted its own all-lockdown and maximum isolation prison. ADX Florence stands as a beacon of the nation's unyielding commitment to accountability and punishment. Its purpose is clear: to hold the most depraved, violent, and uncompromising criminals in the nation. This is a place unlike any other, where even the most heinous of crimes is met with the most severe consequences. Former director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, Norman Carlson, once declared that ADX Florence is the place for a very small subset of the inmate population who show absolutely no concern for human life. His words have become the enduring principles of ADX Florence, the standard by which its inmates are judged. There are basically two ways an individual can get into the ADX prison. The first one is to become a violent serial killer who ruthlessly targets guards and other prisoners while serving their sentence. The second is to become a notorious criminal with the ability to pose a significant threat to national security. Among the infamous inmates who have found themselves confined within the walls of ADX are Ted Kaczynski, also known as the Unabomber, as well as Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh, the perpetrators of the devastating bombing in Oklahoma City. Additionally, Eric Rudolph, responsible for the attack at the Atlanta Olympic Park, found his place within these walls along with Robert Hansen, an FBI supervisor turned Soviet spy. Other notable individuals who have resided in ADX prison include Sammy the Bull Gravano, a trusted informant within the mob, Ramzi Youssef, the mastermind behind the bombing of the World Trade Center in 1993, and Zacarias Moussaoui, a conspirator involved in the events of 9/11. The list continues with Umar Farouk Abdul Muttalib, infamously known as the Underwear Bomber, and most recently, drug lord El Chapo, to name just a few. However, housing such well-known criminals brings with it a significant responsibility to ensure that these individuals remain securely confined. But for ADX Florence, the challenge of keeping prisoners secure is merely the beginning when considering the prison's commitment to being completely impossible to escape from. So, what sets ADX apart and grants it such a formidable reputation? To put it plainly, ADX Florence is renowned for its incredibly strict and rigorous regime, both in its operational procedures and its physical structure. Though ADX has the capacity to house close to 500 inmates, it is never fully occupied. Currently, it is occupied with over 300 inmates. This intentional choice by the Federal Bureau of Prisons is made for crucial security reasons, as they prioritize maintaining a high staff-to-inmate ratio. Furthermore, the selection and vetting process for staff members at ADX is exceedingly thorough, ensuring that only the most trustworthy individuals are employed. Guards are instructed to minimize interactions with the prisoners, avoiding eye contact and unnecessary conversations whenever possible. To facilitate this, many routine tasks, such as opening doors, are conducted remotely, adding an additional layer of security. In ADX, the routines are rigorous, almost as repetitive as the inmates' own daily lives. Former warden Robert Hood once described the institution as life after death. Visitors, including former inmates and journalists, have noted the surprising cleanliness of the facility and the eerie, oppressive silence that envelops it. Despite having 6 security levels, only 4 units are operational due to the prison's low population. These units include the General Population Unit, the Special Security Unit, the Control Unit, and Range 13. The remaining units, the Special Housing Unit, and the Intermediate or Transitional Unit, are not currently in use. The General Population Unit is the lowest security level at ADX. Inmates located in this unit get to socialize and share a communal dining room. They are also allowed to walk within their range without supervision and can secure themselves in their rooms if they display good behavior and maintain peaceful interactions with guards and other prisoners. After the General Population Unit comes the Control Unit, a section reserved for inmates who have committed severe conduct violations or acts of violence while in other institutions. It also houses high-ranking members of groups considered as potential threats, such as dangerous prison gangs. The Special Security Unit is next, housing inmates who are members of designated terror organizations or have special administrative measures imposed on them. This unit has housed some of the world's most notorious terrorists, including Terry Nichols, Umar Farouk Abdul Muttalib, and Zacarias Moussaoui. Finally, we have the ultra-secure and most severe unit, Range 13. This 4-cell wing lies within the Special Housing Unit, where the prisoners are kept in virtual isolation with no human contact. As of now, the only inmates publicly known to have been incarcerated in Range 13 are Thomas Silverstein, Ramzi Youssef, and El Chapo, notorious criminals whose offenses were deemed too extreme for any other correctional facility in the world. Extreme isolation and maximum security in the ADX Florence Supermax prison. Life inside El Chapo's cell at the Supermax unit reveals an environment of extreme security and isolation. The ADX prides itself on having the most advanced anti-escape measures, ensuring that every corner of the facility is impenetrable. In this Ultramax unit, prisoners live an existence of strict solitude, spending 23 hours a day confined within their 7 by 12-foot cells under constant surveillance by armed guards. The cells are constructed with solid concrete walls, ceilings, and floors, and all furnishings are securely built into the infrastructure. Each cell features a small desk, a stool barely large enough for inmates to perch on, and a concrete bed with a thin mattress. In addition, there is a small shelf holding a built-in radio and a black and white television that only broadcasts recreational, religious, and educational programs, providing prisoners with their sole connection to the outside world. There is also a bathroom fitted with an ingenious toilet system that automatically shuts off in case of a blockage. The shower is equipped with a timer to prevent any possibility of drowning, and the sink doesn't have a tap to avoid any potential self-harm by the inmates. Moreover, the cells are designed with double sets of sliding metal doors. These solid exteriors provide a barrier between the cell and the hallways, ensuring that prisoners have no visual contact with each other. This design also prevents inmates from knowing when guards are passing by or when other individuals are inside the facility. Additionally, these doors allow the guards to deliver the prisoners' food without directly encountering their faces. As an additional safety measure, the inmates are provided with mostly mashed food to minimize any potential harm to themselves. Within the confines of this prison, effective measures have been taken to ensure complete isolation and prevent any form of prisoner communication. The cells are meticulously soundproofed, creating an environment where inmates cannot hear each other. This means that shouting or even attempts at covert communication using Morse code are futile. Next up is the window. It's merely a narrow slit in the wall, measuring a mere 4 inches wide by 42 inches tall. Clearly, this wasn't designed to offer a picturesque view of the outside world like something out of a luxury resort. In fact, all that the inmates can see when they look through it is a glimpse of the sky and the roofs of other prison buildings. It effectively ensures that prisoners remain oblivious to their location and makes escape seem like an impossible feat. If you think this cell resembles anything remotely comfortable, think again. It feels more like a tomb, one where the living are held captive. Every aspect of these cells has been deliberately designed to make the inmates feel uncomfortable. Even the lights within the cells are under the remote control of the guards. The lights are kept on incessantly, without much differentiation between day and night, so as to leave the prisoners disoriented and confused about the passage of time. As revealed by El Chapo to his lawyer, the constant illumination makes it very hard to sleep as darkness never envelops the cell. The unbreakable security of ADX Florence measures to prevent prisoner escape. The meticulous measures implemented in ADX Florence makes it impossible for prisoners to escape from this highly secure facility. Prisoners are granted a mere hour of solitary recreation per day. However, this short break comes with strict protocols. Before being escorted out of their cells, they undergo strip searches and are then handcuffed, chained, and closely supervised during their solitary walk. What makes this routine particularly challenging for the inmates is the unpredictability of the timing. The 1-hour window can open at any time of the day or night. This catches the prisoners off guard and makes it virtually impossible for them to strategize an escape plan. But the reality of this recreational period is far from enjoyable. Instead of being taken to a traditional yard, the prisoners are led to a small, empty swimming pool. This setting effectively prevents them from visually surveying the perimeter and gaining any clues about the facility's location. Furthermore, the confined space of the pool area offers limited walking space, just 10 steps diagonally or 31 steps in a circular path. This monotonous and confined exercise further underscores the oppressive environment designed to extinguish any hope of escape and keep the inmates under strict control. On rare occasions, inmates with exemplary behavior have the opportunity to exchange their solitary outdoor walk for a limited phone call with a select group of individuals, which may include their legal counsel. In a small gesture toward fostering connections with the outside world, each inmate is entitled to make one 15-minute non-legal phone call per month. Additionally, prisoners who maintain good conduct may be permitted to receive visitors, although strict regulations are in place. They are not allowed to have any physical contact with their guests and are always separated by a thick glass window. The convicts are also under surveillance 24 hours a day. Throughout the entire facility, motion detectors and inconspicuous cameras are strategically positioned to watch over every corner of the prison. These hidden detectors extend beyond just the prison doors or remote controls. An entire control room is dedicated to monitoring every inch of the ADX facility. The constant vigilance ensures that if any unusual or suspicious activity occurs, officers have the power to activate a panic button. This single action triggers a remarkable response. Each of the 1,400 doors in the prison is automatically locked, effectively blocking any possibility of escape. The extent of remote surveillance goes even further, with the innovative use of pressure pads and motion sensors. These devices are carefully placed both inside and outside the prison cells, equipped to immediately alert authorities if anyone steps on them. But what if someone manages to get past all of that, you might want to ask? For that to happen, they would have to bypass a 12-foot-tall razor wire fence while facing heavily armed guards stationed in watchtowers. As if that's not challenging enough, there are additional guards patrolling with highly trained attack dogs, ready to apprehend anyone trying to escape. The reason behind these security measures is that if you gather some of the most dangerous men in one place, you need to make sure they can't escape, no matter what happens. So, with an impeccable track record of 0 successful escape attempts, ADX Florence lives up to its reputation as an impenetrable facility. This level of security was deemed necessary by American authorities when deciding on a location to house El Chapo after his extradition to the United States. Having previously escaped prison twice, it was crucial to ensure that El Chapo would serve his life sentence in a facility that would leave no room for escape. Now it's time for our subscribers' pick. From the moment El Chapo stepped foot on American soil, you could see the terror in his eyes. He knew, without a doubt, that this was the end of the road for him. At that moment, he realized that even his renowned cunning ways couldn't break free from this ultimate confinement. Having been found guilty of all charges on July 2019, he was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years to be served in ADX Florence. Each passing day reminded him that the world he once ruled was now just a memory. With no chance of escape and his power diminished, El Chapo's legacy was now sealed within the unforgiving walls of the supermax cell. This is perhaps why El Chapo's supermax cell is worse than death. So guys, what do you make out of the story of the infamous drug lord El Chapo? Do share your thoughts in the comment section below as we continue with this video, The Impossibility of El Chapo's Escape from ADX Florence. In the confines of his Range 13 cell, El Chapo faces the harsh reality of his isolation. This time, it appears that there is truly no way out, not even for a notorious criminal of his caliber. Yet, one may wonder if even ADX Florence wasn't 100% escape-proof. Could El Chapo somehow escape the prison facility? To begin his daring escape, El Chapo would need to break free from his cell. However, tunneling is swiftly dismissed as an option within these walls. The reinforced concrete surrounding his cell acts as an impenetrable barrier, deterring any thoughts of digging. Even if El Chapo managed to breach the concrete, he would still have to circumvent the formidable security measures in place. Furthermore, since the cell is equipped with an intricate network of pressure pads, motion detectors, and a discrete camera embedded in the ceiling, he would find it very difficult to escape. Any movement that deviates from the norm would be instantly caught by the watchful eyes of the surveillance system, leaving no room for error. A possible option that might cross El Chapo's mind is attempting to bribe a guard. However, the feasibility of this approach dwindles when considering that all guards undergo rigorous vetting processes. The prospect of successfully bribing a guard seems almost impossible, unless El Chapo's associates were to resort to a drastic move like kidnapping his family. Meanwhile, this is an act that comes with high risks and consequences. Even if, by some slim chance, El Chapo managed to be escorted out of his cell by a guard, his every move would be meticulously monitored from the control room. The tightly controlled system allows only one person to move at a time, rendering any escape attempt riddled with obstacles. El Chapo would need to navigate past pressure pads, elude motion detectors, outsmart vigilant tower guards, evade the watchful eyes of patrols and trained dogs outside, and breach the formidable barbed wire fence that encircles the facility. In a hypothetical scenario where El Chapo had access to a hacker capable of manipulating the security systems to open the doors, he would still face a daunting challenge against the physical barriers guarding his path. The presence of armed guards and alert dogs poses a formidable obstacle, making a direct confrontation almost inevitable. Even if El Chapo had accomplices waiting outside to aid his escape, their conspicuous presence in the desolate surroundings would give them away to the prison staff, leading to swift interception. Moreover, while El Chapo might rally a substantial number of loyal followers to his cause, he would find himself fighting against the highly trained guards of ADX Florence, who are the literal American military. The sheer numbers and firepower of the prison guards would likely outmatch any attempt to liberate El Chapo from the formidable clutches of the prison. Also, the way ADX is built, El Chapo and other inmates can't tell where they are in the prison. So, it's impossible for them to pass on their location to anyone outside. Basically, the only way El Chapo could leave ADX is if his lawyer asks for him to be moved somewhere else, and the request is approved. The drug lord has once revealed that living in his cell at the ADX Florence Maximum facility is torture. He called it the most inhumane situation he has ever been in, and it has been tough physically, emotionally, and mentally. He even told his lawyer that because of these conditions, he often throws up and has an occurrence of headaches and sinus problems. Ultimately, it seems like there's no chance for partying this time. Controversial treatment of inmates at ADX Florence, human rights concerns, and legal challenges. The security measures at ADX are beyond anything one can imagine, and that has driven many human rights activists to argue that the conditions are too harsh for any person. Perhaps that's because even criminals, despite their crimes, are still human beings entitled to certain rights and dignities. Former inmates who have experienced the prison's inhospitable conditions often recount stories that can only be described as sheer inhumanity. One such inmate, Rodney Jones, was arrested for multiple assault charges against fellow inmates and was transferred to ADX in 2003. When interviewed by the New York Times in 2015, he vividly described his time at the prison as a day in hell. Jones recounted the horrific experience of having the staff psychiatrist abruptly stop providing him with medication essential for his bipolar disorder. The reason behind this shocking decision was a refusal to administer what they disdainfully referred to as feel-good drugs. As a result, Jones endured severe mood swings, trying his best to cope by exhausting himself through intense workouts in his cell. However, the absence of proper medication took its toll, pushing him to resort to self-harm. Instead of receiving the necessary support, the prison guards responded by fastening his arms and legs to his bed in a somewhat medieval torture procedure. In his account, Jones also made a concerning observation at ADX about certain inmates who appeared to be struggling with severe mental issues. He was taken aback by the fact that these individuals were expected to cope within the confines of such a strict regime. One particular inmate, Michael Bucot, caught Jones's attention in the recreation yard. Bucot, an illiterate man plagued by acute paranoia, had been sent to ADX after being implicated in a prison murder in Texas. Unfortunately, Bucat was not adjusting well to the new penitentiary. Despite repeatedly requesting a transfer and proper psychological treatment, his pleas were consistently denied. Driven to help, Jones discreetly reached out to a pro bono legal aid group, the DC Prisoners Legal Services Project, pretending to be Bucat. Upon learning of the situation, the director of the project, Deborah Golden, was utterly appalled. She could not comprehend how the Bureau of Prisons could operate in such an illegal and unconstitutional manner, given their regulations against housing mentally disordered inmates in penitentiaries like ADX. Golden delved deeper into the matter and uncovered numerous similar stories from other ADX prisoners. These accounts included incidents of self-harm, severe mental illness, and even tragic cases of suicide. After some further investigation in 2012, a class action lawsuit was filed against the United States Bureau of Prisons. This lawsuit exposed a troubling reality. Numerous inmates had been diagnosed with insanity during their time in ADX, and those with pre-existing mental conditions experienced a noticeable worsening of their conditions. To make matters worse, the lawsuit claimed that housing mentally unstable prisoners in maximum isolation conditions amounted to nothing short of mental torture. While prisons are not meant to be luxurious retreats, subjecting inmates to borderline torture chambers goes beyond acceptable limits. It is no wonder that ADX has earned itself the reputation of being an incubator for mental illness. Even Jeffrey Lichtman, one of El Chapo's trial attorneys, expressed deep concerns about the supermax conditions, likening them to torture. Dr. Terry Coopers, a psychiatrist who delved into the psychological impact of long-term solitary confinement at supermax, in his book, Solitary: The Inside Story of Supermax Isolation and How We Can Abolish It, shedded light on the dire consequences R.L. Chapo would face. He stated, "The nearly complete isolation will test Guzman's resilience, if not his sanity." Dr. Coopers further explained that the long-term isolation experienced by inmates can lead to panic, paranoia, compulsive behaviors, irrational anger, and overwhelming despair. In spite of the pressing concerns raised about the treatment of inmates, the staff at ADX seem remarkably resistant to change their methodology. Instead, they commend the institution for its ability to effectively rehabilitate the most violent and dangerous prisoners. According to their perspective, extended periods of solitude and isolation serve as a powerful catalyst for transforming even the most desperate individuals into calm and compliant individuals. The belief within those walls is that this approach provides a constant incentive for criminals to change their behavior. For instance, if they adhere to the rules and demonstrate obedience, they are rewarded with access to books, newspapers, and the potential for transfer to other facilities. Now, of course, we could agree that El Chapo is currently on his best behavior, but the likelihood of him being transferred to a lesser maximum security prison is close to zero given his history of escapes. Thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.